What's up guys, this is DJ Cade back once again with another video. Now normally in my videos I like to cover my own side of my local tournaments and even some of my online tournaments. And if you guys are wondering how I did in this cup, I actually did really well. I took second place and was the first place of all of the second place people. So I ranked right behind Jojokanojojo. But Jojo has been doing very well in a lot of our tournaments. He has won many of our first season tournaments, and he once again won this tournament with a 5-0 victory, which is awesome, not only because it was more rounds than we normally play, but also because we had such a bigger turnout than we normally do for a lot of our tournaments, which was really awesome to see. This tournament brought in a lot of new players, a lot of new battlers, and since it seems like these days it's almost pretty much a mortal sin to upload a tournament video that isn't a complete and total undefeated sweep, then I thought what I would do for this video is take this time to highlight the performance of one of our better players in our community and somebody that I think you guys are going to be needing to watch out for at regionals and hopefully even worlds. I mean, I hope he can make it all the way to those worlds and I hope he can absolutely dominate there. But just for today, I'm going to show you guys Jojokanojojo's undefeated run through our local Sinister Cup tournament. And yes, he does fight me and he does kick my butt, so we're gonna see how that turns out. I'm going to be getting some new strategies just from my own battles, just watching them from his perspective. And this tournament is going to go a little bit faster in terms of my coverage because I really can't give you guys any sort of like ideas on what he was thinking when he was putting his team together, why he chose what he did, and I'm not really going to be able to give you guys an insight of what was going on in his mind between matches and during the match and some of the things that he was thinking as far as strategy or anything like that. So basically I'm just going to be covering one battle after another here until the end, and if I'm feeling saucy at the end of this, I might also show you guys my battles because I did record them and I kind of just want to put them out there just to have a record of them anyways. So why don't we hop into the first battle against Gospo 2013, who is somebody that I faced before and is a really good competitor. Let's check out this first battle. Alright, so Jojo brings out the Poliwrath and the Bronzong comes in, and he doesn't even do a fast move. He's got to get out of there because that is not a good matchup, but he chooses the Dusclops safe switch. And now he's got a little bit of energy to where he can throw a Shadow Punch right away, and he's got enough built up from that switch into where he can throw a second Shadow Punch immediately, and he takes out the first shield. He lets the second one go through, but Marowak is pretty quick. So he does manage to bait him with that Bone Club there, and now what's going to happen next? Is it going to be... It's going to be another Bone Club. He chooses not to shield that one. He could have had the Shadow Ball, but Jojo is very good at counting those fast moves, and he throws out another Shadow Punch, getting that second shield. So now his opponent is basically a sitting duck, and he's got one shield left, and the Bone Club does barely enough to take out the Dusclops. I didn't think that was going to happen. So the Poliwrath comes in. Once again, he switches in. And he switches out into Steelix right away when the Bronzong comes in. So bringing in that Poliwrath to kind of bait the Bronzong into being switched in, which allows him to switch into that Steelix. And this is going to be a good matchup for him as long as he can shield that Bulldoze, and he calls the Bulldoze, which is awesome. So now he's going to be able to just hit with Crunch. And it's only going to be another couple Dragon Tails, and he's going to be ready to take him out. He decides to go for another Crunch here. I'm not sure if he would have needed to have done that, but like I said, I wasn't counting the fast moves as well as he was. That Marowak comes back in, doesn't have any health. He manages to take it out with just one fast move. And now all he has to do is send in an Earthquake against that Mawile, and that's it. So Jojo takes the first game. All right, second game, and once again getting the exact same leads on both sides. So once again, Jojo's going to switch out, going to do the safe switch into that Dusclops, and this is going very similarly, except he decides to bring in the Steelix this time, which I think was a much safer switch in against that Dusclops. We're going to see how this plays out here, because Steelix can tank those fire punches pretty well, and those shadow punches, he just kind of shrugs those off anyway. Jojo decides to let that crunch go through and really doesn't do a whole ton of damage. Dusclops manages to shrug that off just as well as he can shrug off those fire punches. He does manage to get a shield there, but I doubt he's going to shield that last one. He's going to save his shields, let that Dusclops go down, and the Poliwrath is going to come in, and he's going to be able to mop up that Steelix. And right away, as soon as the Bronzong comes in, he sends in his Steelix, and that was a really, really good call. He did not waste any time whatsoever sending in the Steelix against him, but now he's at a switch disadvantage, but Gospo just doesn't have anything he can switch into on this Steelix. So this is kind of an okay matchup for Jojo. I mean, he can get hit by some of those bone clubs, and that's going to kind of hurt, but not really. It's going to be more of a positive matchup for Steelix in this case. He decides to shield the bone club, probably thinking it was going to be a shadow ball. We're going to see if Gospo manages to get to an actual shadow ball. No, just a bone club here. Choosing not to save that extra energy, and now the shields are down. He's going to be left wide open for this Steelix with the crunch, and the Bronzong's going to come back in, and Steelix, having built up so much energy, is going to get that free shot at that Bronzong, be able to do almost half of his health. And now he's down to a point where the Poliwrath is all he has left. Is he going to be able to survive this one? I don't know how many games they played, keep in mind. I'm watching all of this fresh. But he's going to send in the power-up punch only. He doesn't have dynamic punch, which is really interesting. And that is barely enough for Jojo to take the second game. That was incredibly close. Alright, so they decide to do a game 3 here. And, ooh, this is interesting. So he comes in with the Poliwrath lead, and once again walks into a bad lead with that Gallade. Once again, doing the safe switch to that Dusclops, being an absolute MVP for him so far, and he's got to switch out of there, and the Alolan Marowak is the only thing that he's got to counter this Dusclops. And as you can see, he just didn't have anything that could really hard counter that Dusclops besides that. So that's all he's got. And ooh, he chooses to let the Shadow Ball go through and let it hit and take down the Dusclops. And now he sends in the Poliwrath to do that bubble damage. He's going to... Ooh, he doesn't shield the Bone Club. That was a really, really good call. But now the Gallade comes in, and ooh, he's got a Hydro Pump for the Gallade, and this is gonna hurt. He should have shielded that. Ouch. I don't know if that was the right call, actually. Maybe it was, but like now he's just going to be a sitting duck for this power-up punch from Jojo's Poliwrath to just power up and just be able to sweep him, because he's only got one shield left to Jojo's 2. And he'll be able to send in another power-up punch here and just basically be able to do all the bubble damage that he needs to clean him up. And keep in mind, Jojo's got 2 Pokemon left, so all he's got to do is work him down a little bit. And what happened there? Did you guys see that? It's like he regained all of his health. Was that a result of the switch into Steelix? Because it looked like the health bar from... switched over to Steelix's health bar before he even managed to switch out here. I don't know, I'm kind of shocked about that, but like, anyways, the Steelix is probably going to be enough in this case to get that Poliwrath down to being fainted, I guess. The words aren't really coming to me. I'm still shocked by that weird glitch. So once again, they played the third game, and even with the really, really bad lead, he got bad leads all 3 games and still managed to win all 3 games. GG's go to Jojokanojojo. And I really think that the keys to him winning some of these matches here were to have that Dusclops safe switch, because he did get bad leads. Those confusion users came out on him every single time. And as you can see, like, he manages to get to a Shadow Punch before his Marowak can even come in. And, you know, if you're bringing the Marowak in, you know, he's going to be throwing a Shadow Punch, so you got to decide to shield right away. I mean, that's immediately going to put the opponent at a shield disadvantage. And once again, like, he's just so fast that he can get to that extra Shadow Punch really, really quick. And so you have to decide whether or not you're going to burn up all of your shields, or whether or not you're going to put yourself at a health disadvantage. And that was probably the big keys to winning this game, and probably many of his games in this tournament. And in this case, even though he decides to let it go down here, he can still conserve a shield, and then he can bring out the correct Pokemon for that situation, which will put him at a switch advantage. So some really high level strats being played out here by Jojokanojojo. Alright, let's get into the next game here. Now, I said I wasn't going to do too much commentary between these matches, but Zephon76, this was actually the very first time he ever competed in a PvP tournament. He actually talked to me quite a bit in the days leading up to this, because Zephon was the guy who traded me like 5, 6, 7 Cresselias in an attempt for me to get a Cresselia that fit into the Great League. So I personally have to thank Zephon76 for that, because otherwise I would not have my Great League Cresselia. He managed to hold on to a whole bunch of them, but I gotta say, like, the RNG and the Sylph ranking system, I mean, you're taking a brand new player to PvP and putting him up against one of the toughest opponents in our area. Just ouch, ouch. Just, I'm sorry, Zephon, but luck was not on your side for this tournament. And, you know, he has a really interesting team. I honestly wonder if he has that Legacy Primeape or not, but he's got the Medicham, and he's got 2 ghost types, both very strong ghost types, and a confusion user. I just don't see too much for tanks on Zephon76's team. It might have really helped him to have a Steelix, but we'll see how these matches play out here. Alright, so the Haunter comes in right away. I mean, Jojo is feeling really, really bold about this one, and this is going to be a pretty positive matchup, just because Haunter is able to outspeed that Drifblim. He's going to send in the Shadow Punch, and he burns up a shield, and he swaps out right away, giving Zephon the switch advantage, interestingly enough. But he's going to be able to get to those Shadow Punches pretty quick. But this isn't really a good matchup for him. Probably one of the worst things that Dusclops can actually come across is that Poliwrath, and Poliwrath decides to send in an Ice Punch, and he's actually going to get ahead as far as the HP is concerned, but Dusclops is just so fast with them Shadow Punches. I mean, we'll see if he can get to that Ice Punch, and he does. He's going to send in a Dynamic Punch. Maybe not the best choice of moves there. I think he would have been better off going with another Ice Punch, but the Shadow Punch comes in, and both of his shields are gone at this point. He's decided that he was going to shield very early on, putting Jojo at a shield advantage, a huge shield advantage, and the Medicham was just not the right choice here. And all he's got left is the Drifblim and the Medicham, and the Drifblim survives that with almost no HP. I can't even see how much HP he's got. The Shadow Ball comes in, and all it's going to take is one fast attack for Haunter, and at this point, you know, Haunter is going to double resist those counters if that's what he has on it, and he's going to just absolutely destroy that Medicham. So, on to game 2. Alright, next game, I took a look at his team. Jojo isn't even going to change his team or his lineup. He's just going to send in the exact same lineup. And once again, he's in a bad situation with this Drifblim. He's going to get off that Shadow Punch right away. And just looking at Zephon's team really quick, there's going to be a lot of things that Haunter and that Dusclops are going to be able to beat. I kind of have to look in the other direction because of, Zephon does manage to get the boost, which could swing this in his favor a little bit. So he does burn up the second shield, which in this case is probably his best move, seeing as how he's got the buff now. He does manage to get Dusclops down pretty low with that ominous wind, but he's just going to be at a disadvantage right now as far as those shields are concerned, and all it's going to take is one Shadow Claw to finish him off, and in comes the Primate. Now I want to see if this Primate has the Night Slash and Cross Chop, and I want to see how this plays out, but the Shadow Ball is just going to do so much damage, and I don't think he was even able to get to any sort of charge move before Haunter could take him out, and that Shadow Ball against the Poliwrath, Jojo just managed to set up on him and just take that game, and honestly, I don't even think they played the second game here, so I think Zephon just decided to bow out of the third game. So once again, GG's to Jojo and also to Zephon76. I gotta say that he did have a pretty decent lineup. I think what happened is that he kind of used some of his shields a little bit too early. I think he would have been better off just letting some Pokemon go down, trying to keep the switch advantage and saving some of those shields, because I think he did have a fairly solid lineup, but again, he was bringing Double Ghost, Jojo was bringing Double Ghost, and also bringing that Steelix. That was his third Pokemon that never came out in either of those matches, and that Steelix is going to be incredibly strong against most of his lineups, so I'm not sure if he was destined to win that one anyways. So once again, GG's to both players. Alright guys, this is the moment I've been dreading. This is the moment that's gonna make me look like a real chump, because I get absolutely bodied here. We do all three matches, and I believe in the third match I get beaten even worse than I do in the first two matches. So I want to view this from Jojo's perspective, because I want to see kind of where I went wrong in these matches and what I maybe could have done that could have swung it my way. So this is going to be a learning experience for me and for you guys. So let's just jump into this first match and let's get this going. Alright, so he decides to send in the Poliwrath first, and I send in the Drifblim. This should be a good matchup for me, as long as, and at this point I don't know that he has the Ice Punch, so I decide not to shield it, thinking that that was a little bit too fast to be an Ice Punch, and I tried to send in the Ominous Wind. He does not fall for that shield bait, and now he switches in with that Dusclops, but I really don't have anything that I can switch in on with this Dusclops. I figure maybe I can hit him with an Ominous Wind or a Shadow Ball. I get him with that. Now he's going to go for the Shadow Punch. I decide that I'm going to block that because it's going to do quite a bit of damage coming from Dusclops. He goes for another Shadow Punch, and I think that was my big mistake right there, choosing to throw both shields at the Drifblim. I wanted to save the Drifblim just in case he brought that Medicham, because in a lot of my practice matches I was getting absolutely bodied by Medicham, okay, and I didn't expect that he wouldn't send it in, but now I'm just a sitting duck with absolutely no shields, and he's got one and he's got a couple Pokemon. So I send in the Cresselia here because I think whatever I have left in the back isn't going to be doing too well. I thought I could farm a little bit on this Dusclops, but that probably wasn't the right strat, because here comes the Steelix. And he decides not to shield this. This is a Moonblast. No, I didn't have any charged TMs, so I couldn't get Future Sight, but now this is a really bad matchup. I mean, you guys see what's happening here, right? He is just farming me so hard. The moment I switch in my Steelix to try and get a better matchup, he brings in the Poliwrath, and what I don't know is that he's just got a ton of stored energy on that Steelix. That is just a ticking time bomb waiting to be used against my team. So he can send in his own Poliwrath, and he's able to counter this. He's not even going to he's going to not even hit the bubbles on this so he can do the maximum amount of farming. He's really using some high-level strats on me. So now he's got a ton of energy on this Poliwrath, and this is when I just get hit with the onslaught, okay? He ducks out right away. He doesn't even let me kill the Poliwrath, and then he sends in the Steelix for 2 crunches immediately, and this is when my jaw just hit the floor because I was like, how? I wasn't even paying attention to how much he was farming on me. Like, that is just a crazy farmable matchup. Getting the Cresselia, bringing in the Steelix against that Cresselia, and that is what lost me that match. So let's go into game 2. Can I change anything here? Let's see. Alright, so he sends in the Poliwrath. I send in my own Poliwrath this time, knowing that he likes to lead with that, especially from our last match. And so we're building up to our first power-up punch. I'm going to throw that power-up punch and get a little boost going, and he's not going to fall for that. And now, see, I noticed that he was building up a lot more, you know, energy, and I shield thinking that it might be Hydro Pump, and it was. I managed to call that. So he switches out, he brings in the Dusclops safe switch, and I managed to hit him with the Ice Punch. So I should be at a fairly decent advantage here, right? I send in my Steelix thinking that I could do some damage to this Dusclops, maybe get a couple crunches in there, but Dusclops is just so fast with those charge attacks. He's going to send in another Fire Punch, which does do a little bit more damage than I was expecting. Of course, this is going to be a crunch. He can see it coming. He ends up shielding that, and we're both at 1-to-1 shield here. So this is going a lot better than it was the last game. He sends in one more Fire Punch. I figured that's what it's going to be, but I wanted to keep my Steelix healthy because I wanted to be able to take out his ghost types. And now I've got 3 Pokemon left, but he's got his 2 Pokemon left. He's going to send in that Poliwrath. He's got that 1 shield left, so he has the advantage there. But now I'm wondering, what do I bring in here? What do I bring in against him? I send my own Poliwrath back in thinking that he's at a health disadvantage. I managed to send in my own power-up punch right away, and here's the problem though. He hits me with that, and that's going to swing the whole momentum of this game, and he's got me way down at this point. So in comes the Ice Punch, and I actually managed to take out his Poliwrath, but he's got 1 shield left, and now all he has to do is get to this Earthquake, because I brought in the Bastiodon instead of the Steelix, and that Earthquake is just going to absolutely destroy me. And I was just thinking to myself, even if I hit him with a Flamethrower, there's no way I can hit him with another Flamethrower before he hits me with an Earthquake. And at this point, I had pretty much given up. I was just playing with one hand, and I was already shaking his hand, and I congratulated him on GG's. So, but I didn't want to walk away empty-handed, so I decided that I was going to battle him one more time, just for glory, just to see if I could take one match off the dude. Alright, so this time he sends in Dusclops early on, and I send in my Drifblim, and I'm kind of afraid of this, because I know how fast he can get to those Shadow Punches, and I decide that I'm going to let that one go through and not shield that, and he decides that he's going to let this go through, and the Ominous Wind does quite a bit of damage. I'm going to switch in, but that loses me the switch advantage. He's got plenty of energy stored up on that Dusclops before he switches out, so now he's able to just switch into that Poliwrath, and he calls the Earthquake. He shields the Earthquake, which is going to be something that's just huge. It's going to be an enormous factor in him winning the game. I decide to shield, thinking that either the power-up punch or the Hydro Pump are going to hurt, and especially since he used the shield already, I wanted to stay at that shield advantage, or at least even with him. But Poliwrath is just going to be able to take out my Steelix, and he has to burn up that last shield to use to shield against that Earthquake. I decide to send my Drifblim back in, and I shield the power-up punch. I shield the power-up punch thinking he had done a lot of farming and, you know, it was going to send in the Hydro Pump against me, and now he's got 3 Pokemon left and I've only got 1 Pokemon left, and I was just thinking, okay, how bad is this Hydro Pump going to hurt at this point? It's going to hurt a lot. A lot. He's going to take me out even with the water type thing, even though I take new... Wow. Okay, that video ended really quick. So yeah, he takes me out with that Hydro Pump, and man, I just felt really bad. Like, I felt my 3rd match against him was just so much worse than my other 2. But that's some high-level play for you. So, especially from Jojo. I mean, not from me, but mostly from Jojo. So, GG's, go to him. That was very, very well played. Alright guys, now these are the matches I wanted to see. I can remember everybody who was watching these 2 people play saying that these were some incredibly good, incredibly close matches, and I'm actually going to slow down the playback of these just by a couple notches. As you can see, I'm on 1.5. I'm going to slow it down to 1.3 so I can try to commentate on these. I didn't watch the matches myself because I didn't know if I was going to be going up against DeFi 250 or not, so I didn't really want to, like, cheat and spoil it for myself or anything by, like, seeing what moves she had or anything. But let's just get right into these matches. I don't know how many matches they end up playing. They might end up going through all 3, but let's get into the first one and check this out. Alright, so Poliwrath comes out, and Poliwrath comes out. Now, we're going to see how this plays out. We already know that Jojo has Hydro Pump and the Power-Up Punch, and Jojo's going to get to the first charge move. He's going to send in Power-Up Punch, of course. Not able to get to that Hydro Pump quite yet, and DeFi does not shield that. And, ooh, Jojo makes the right call there by shielding that Dynamic Punch. That was a really, really good call. So we know that DeFi has the Dynamic Punch over the Power Up Punch, and Jojo is going to burn his second shield there. That's really interesting. So I wonder how that's going to play out for him in this match. He sends in another power-up punch, and he manages to get a shield. She probably shielded thinking that it was going to be a Hydro Pump, but this first matchup is just a shootout between 2 Poliwraths, and that Dynamic Punch is just going to do a ton of damage. And once again, he tries to possibly fake DeFi out into using another shield, you know, make her think that it's going to be a Hydro Pump, but he hasn't gone for the Hydro Pump once yet. That's really, really interesting. And these 2 are almost at the same level of health. Wow. Okay, so out comes the Steelix, and DeFi has a an Ice Punch. I thought she was going to send in the Dynamic Punch. That would have probably done a lot more damage, but he manages to get a hit on that Steelix even before the Poliwrath can go down. So now the Dusclops comes in, and I think that's because there really isn't much on DeFi's team that can take down an enemy Steelix besides a Steelix of her own. So maybe she just didn't bring it for this one, but the Fire Punch is going to be fairly decent. And she's going to send that in. Wait a minute. Wait, I gotta adjust this. No. Sorry, I got my players mixed up here. I thought DeFi was bringing in the Bastiodon, but that's not the case. So she decides that she's finally going to switch out of there. So she brings in the Steelix. I'm not quite sure why she didn't bring in the Steelix before, but she decides to let that first Flamethrower go, probably knowing that she can build up to an Earthquake and take this out. Ooh! He tries to get to another Flamethrower, but can't, and in comes the Earthquake. Boom! Down goes that, and down goes the Bastiodon, and Jojo's got some stored energy here. She decides to shield that Earthquake, but wow! Jojo goes down in the first game. I'm sorry about that kind of, like, where my mind just sputtered out. I thought for a second there that that was DeFi bringing in the Bastiodon. I got my players mixed up, so I'm really, really sorry about that. But that was very, very interesting. Very well played. And by DeFi 250 and Jojo burning up those 2 shields early on in the match. If he would have saved at least one of those shields, probably could have won that matchup. I think that was where his main failing came in. So the next 2 matches, we're going to have to see how Jojo turns this around and see how he wins this. Alright, the second match begins, and Jojo gets a much better lead this game. He's been dealing with some bad leads pretty much all tournament, and he's got to get out of there. She switches into the Dusclops safe switch. He switches into the Dusclops safe switch, but she's got that little bit of energy advantage, so she's going to be able to get the first Shadow Punch, and he's going to be able to get another Shadow Punch here, and they're just going to Shadow Punch each other out at this point. And yeah, she's going to be able to get to a second one. He decides he's going to shield this next one. I'm not sure how that's going to play out for Jojo. We'll have to see. So he decides that she decides that she's going to match his shield usage. But she's still ahead on energy. She's still pulling off those Shadow Punches faster than he can, and she takes away Jojo's last shield. But Jojo deciding not to tap the bubbles. That's really interesting. Deciding not to tap because, like, I think what that's going to do is that's going to put him in a switch advantage lead. That's really interesting that he chose not to hit the bubbles there, but he manages to get a Shadow Punch off on that Marowak, send into Steelix, and now she's got to send in her own Steelix, and he's going to try for the shield bait here. We'll see if DeFi falls for it. And DeFi falls for it. Oof, that's going to put her in a really bad spot, but can she get to... No, she doesn't get to the Earthquake before he can get to the Earthquake. That banked energy from that. Man, oh man. But it still doesn't take out her Steelix, which is very, very interesting. But she's going to hit him with the Earthquake, and down goes that Steelix. The Poliwrath now can come in and clean up that Steelix very easily, but she manages to get to another charge move with just a sliver of health. Probably knew that she had to throw the crunch because she knew she was going down, wasn't going to get to that next Earthquake, and now all she's got left is that Marowak. The Shadow Ball is going to do some big damage to the Poliwrath, but Poliwrath, gonna send in that Hydro Pump, and there's no way Marowak's going to survive that. So Jojo takes the second game. How is he going to handle the third game? Alright, the third game begins. He decides to bring in Steelix, and she brings in the Poliwrath. That's a really bad lead, so once again, doing the Dusclops safe switch here, getting that energy advantage, and the best thing that DeFi can bring in at this point is her own Dusclops. She's not going to use a shield just yet, and I'm surprised. Like, even though she let that Shadow Punch go through, they were still fairly close before she landed her own Shadow Punch. That's really actually pretty surprising. Shows exactly how safe of a switch-in that Dusclops is. Excuse me. And neither one of them... Oh, I'm sorry. Jojo does decide to use a shield here. Blocks this Shadow Punch, and that's going to put him ahead in that respect. So now she's going to have to decide, shield or let it go down, and she decides to shield. Okay, probably thinking that she can get to one more Shadow Punch in this case. So Jojo chooses not to shield. He's not going to waste his very last shield doing that. He'd rather let it go down, and ooh, what's happening with this recording here? Ouch. Okay, I think we're back to where we were in the recording. Alright, so the Poliwraths come in at this point after the Dusclopses go down. I don't know what happened with that recording there. I really apologize for that, but anyways, he decides he's going to go straight for the Hydro Pump here against this Poliwrath. Going to see if he can do some serious damage, and he does some serious damage to that Poliwrath. and she decides not to shield it, and she's probably kicking herself at that point. He decides to shield the dynamic punch because at that point it absolutely would have taken him out. He knows that she's got dynamic punch, so he's really got no choice but to get out of there now. Otherwise he's going to get taken out, but she manages to get one last charge move before the Poliwrath goes down, and she decides to just let it go down. She instead of switching out, I don't think she could have switched out anyways, but Jojo decides to go in with the Earthquake now, and will... no, she doesn't shield. She doesn't shield the Earthquake. Oh my. Okay, now I know why this match was so hyped. This is going back and forth here. The leads are changing hands. She sends out an Earthquake of her own and takes out that Steelix like it's nothing, but she just can't get to another charge move, and Jojo barely, just barely takes it away from DeFi 250 in that very last game. That was crazy. That could have gone either way. The shield baits, the unshielded charge moves that both of them needed to shield, especially DeFi 250. Wow. Ouch. That was a crazy final match there. Wow, this video file is like all sorts of corrupted. Alright, the very last match, once again another match between two of the best players in our area. A little bit different team, bringing in that Haunter and that Gallade as the Confusion user. Let's see how this one goes. I have actually no idea whether or not they play 2 matches or they play 3 matches. Let's see how this turns out. Alright, so the Poliwrath comes out and the Gallade, once again with a bad lead, and Jojo knows when to switch out of a bad lead, once again bringing in the safe switch, and ooh, bringing in that golden Steelix. Very, very nice. We're going to have to see what the CP rating on this is. That's really good for PvP, actually. That's kind of awesome. He hits him with that Fire Punch, and as we can see, he chooses not to shield that. He chooses to, Jojo chooses to shield the Crunch, and that keeps him alive just long enough to keep doing some more damage with the Fire Punch. He does manage to get a shield out of him that time. Jojo chooses not to shield this Crunch, which is really interesting because only a couple more fast moves are going to take him out. But as we know from some of his previous matches, it's really important to save at least one shield for the matchups that we need. Whoa, he switches out there to Poliwrath. He goes down, he brings in the Gallade, switches out the Poliwrath, and in comes... Wait a minute, I gotta go back and look at that. Alright, so what happens here? The Poliwrath comes in against the Steelix. The Steelix switches out into the Gallade, and his Steelix switches into the Gallade really, really fast, and there's no way that he can be at a close combat yet, but either the Leaf Blade or the close combat is going to hurt. So he finally gets up to a Crunch here, and a Gilded Prophet has to shield, and so now both shields are down. And what is this going to be? This is going to be a close combat. Ouch! That's going to take out that Steelix, and it's going to be 3 Pokemon against 1 here. So how in the world is Jojo going to come back from this one? The Leaf Blade, oh, gonna take him out. Wow, Gilded Prophet taking down Jojokanojojo in the first game with 3 Pokemon remaining. I'm sorry that I had to back that up there. That all happened so fast. I just needed to go back and see what happened just for my own purposes and for you guys as well. Alright, so the second match begins. This time Steelix comes in against the Dusclops, and this time this is a pretty good lead. Like, he can really wear him down with these Crunches when he gets them. Like, he's going to leave him no choice but to shield the Crunches, but he will end up taking the damage from that Fire Punch. He decides to switch into his own Dusclops here, and Gilded's just going to stay in, and he's going to decide not to shield this Shadow Punch, which is really interesting. Really not wanting to burn any of those shields. He sends in a Shadow Punch of his own, and it's surprising how far down on HP Gilded Prophet is despite having stayed in the battle longer. So I don't know if it's just an IV thing that we're seeing play out here or what's going on, but He decides to send in another Shadow Punch. I don't know if he's banking energy here, but he spends another shield, or Gilded spends his first shield, and in comes the Gallade, and Dusclops manages to get a Shadow Punch before he can go down. Actually, 2 Shadow Punches. He was building up, that's what his strategy was, building up some extra energy so he could send in these extra Shadow Punches against this Gallade, and that did end up paying off for him in the end. He must have known that Gilded was going to bring that Gallade in there and wanted to prepare for it. And what is going on with these recordings? Sorry about that. But anyways, both of the Steelixes come in now, and the Crunch is going to come out. He's going to get the shield bait there, which is bad for Jojo, but Jojo's got this Earthquake built up, and will he be able to get enough damage on this gold Steelix to be able to take this out? I think at this point the Crunch is going to be all he needs. Like, Gilded just not able to build up the damage, and Jojo takes the second game. You know, in the future, I'm going to have to slow this down to normal speed, especially if I have no clue what's about to happen in the match. I think I understand now why King Ivy chooses to commentate on matches at normal speed instead of like double speed. I know I could pull like a Hero Vange and try to do 4 times normal speed, but I don't know if I can do that without knowing what the matches are going to be. But anyways, let's slow this down just a wee little bit so we can maybe see what some of the strategies are here, and we'll see what happens in this last game, because that was a really interesting play last game to save up all that energy in case the Gallade comes in. Okay, so the Steelix comes in this time, the Gallade comes in this time, and I don't think this is really a good matchup when you consider that Leaf Blade and the close combat. I mean, that's going to absolutely destroy that Steelix if he manages to land either one of those. But he's going to go for this Crunch right away, going to be able to get to a charge move while resisting those confusions, and he's going to choose to shield that first Crunch. He's going to let that Leaf Blade go through, switch out into the Dusclops safe switch once again. I'm sorry, Best in West, but it looks like it's a strategy that's really, really working for this Dusclops, or at least for Jojo, I'm sorry. But now Gilded brings in his own Dusclops, and Jojo was able to farm some energy here, and he's got a couple Shadow Punches prepared for this Dusclops right away. He's going to force that last shield, and ooh, he's up 2-0 on shields. Jojo's going to spend one of his because he knows he's in a shield advantage situation, and so in comes the Shadow Punch here. Going to do some super effective damage. Maybe he'll be able to take him out with fast moves, but not quite. And he's going to choose to let the Dusclops go. Actually, he doesn't even need to shield it. He can take down his Dusclops without having to spend another shield. And he's got a Shadow Punch prepared for this Steelix that just comes in and manages to hit him with one of those. Now he's got 2 options that he could send in. He chooses to send in the Poliwrath because that's going to be one of his best options in this case. The Gallade comes back in, and he's got built up energy in the form of that Leaf Blade, and he decides to switch out here. He's got the Steelix in the back, and that's going to be a much better matchup against this Gallade. And even though he's got no shields, ooh, the close combat is going to put a hurting on him, but all it takes is one more bubble for Poliwrath to finish off that Gallade, and oh, nice play here with that Hydro Pump that's absolutely going to eat that Steelix alive. So Jojo turns it around, wins the last 2 games, and as a result wins the Sinister Cup local tournament. I hope I could keep up with the commentary. I know I kind of fumbled over my words and stuff like that a couple times, and I'm really sorry about that, but like, Yeah, very, very good strategies. Some strategies that I didn't even see, like banking tons of energy, you know, like predicting certain Pokemon coming in like that Gallade, and, you know, choosing not to shield in certain situations. I'm going to have to go back and review some of this footage myself, because Jojo just happens to be getting coached. I don't know if you guys could see that in some of his videos, but he is one of Zionic's students, and I think Gilded Prophet and DeFi 250 are also students of Zionic, which I cannot personally afford at this moment. But I'm gonna have to see what some of these strategies are, because I think that a lot of the top YouTubers, this is my theory, I think a lot of them have strategies that they don't put in their videos. I think a lot of them save those strategies for paying subscribers only. So I'm gonna have to go check that out. But once again, GG's, go to Jojokanojojo for a very well played tournament. That was awesome to watch. And just to give you guys an idea of how the whole tournament played out and what some of the teams were that people used, I thought I'd just bring up this, the tournament webpage for you guys so you can see what some of this looks like. As you can see, Jojo taking all these matches off of some of the top players. He basically managed to beat every single person that managed to take second place. Here are the final rankings. As you can see, I thought about uploading my matches on this video, but I took a look at the recording I just made, and it's an hour long, and it's still going to be pretty long once I edit out all of the, you know, bad takes and the other things. So I don't think I'm going to upload my matches from this tournament. I've uploaded plenty of my tournaments before, and come to think of it, I watched a video recently by Hero Vange where he talked about how he had a Sinister Cup win even though he tied for first place, which I thought was really interesting. And I thought to myself, wait a minute, does that mean that if I tie for first place, that technically counts as a win? I want to look at something after we take a look at everything else here on this list. I just kind of wanted to take a look first at some of the teams that people were using. As you can see, Polyraths everywhere, Steelixes everywhere, Viper Mark II with an interesting team, bringing in a Dusk Noir and the Alolan Raichu. And then as we go down a little bit further, we've got some more off-meta picks, and I think what happened with a lot of these players is, like I said, we've got a lot of brand new people who are just getting interested in PvP, and they might not have been as prepared for the tournament as some of the other people. So some of these players were getting some help from some of the more experienced people who are already there, and they were kind of like making suggestions in terms of like what could be brought in and such and such. So like if you see some more off-meta picks here, like guys, just give them the benefit of the doubt here. We're getting some more people into PvP, which is what we want, right? And next time they're going to come back and they're going to be even stronger than ever. Let's go back up to the top here and let's check out the rankings. As you can see, I tied for second place with DeFi 250 and Gilded Prophet. And what was really cool about this is that I actually managed to get myself one of the Sinister Cup enamel pins. I don't know if you can see this, but I put it here on my hat, so now I have a pin for the Sinister Cup, and I think the reason I got it, they explained it to me, but I still don't fully know how it worked, because I think what it is if you win the tournament, you get a pin. And I think Jojokanojojo won the second pin from the raffle that we host. So he basically got 2 pins, and I think what happened is because I was technically the second place person overall, the extra pin ended up trickling down to me. It ended up going from his hands to my hands. So as a result, I ended up getting the pin for that, which I think is really cool. So now I've got one to go with my mirror cup, and I've got all of my like non-enamel pins here and stuff. And I've actually got a Kingdom Cup pin coming in the mail, which I still haven't picked up from DeFi 250 yet, so I'm gonna have to go pick that up at some point. But that was really cool. So I did manage to win a pin from that, and as you can see, here is Jojokanojojo's victorious thing. Now, like I was saying before about these tournament victories, as you can see from this page, I was looking around on my page here and I noticed that, wait a minute, I've got a Mirror Cup badge in gold. Now I know I didn't win that tournament, but you know, I've seen other people make YouTube videos where they talk about how they won a tournament even though they only technically tied for first place. For example, Hero Vange's latest Sinister Cup tournament video where he talks about how he won the tournament, and I didn't think that counted, okay? I didn't think that counted. I thought you had to do a complete undefeated sweep in order for it to count as a victory, but you know, apparently, you know, tying for first place, that can count as a victory. So is it like, I didn't even know that. I have my whole tournament coverage for my local Twilight Cup up on my channel, so if you guys want to see a tournament that I actually won, it's just weird because the whole time I haven't been giving myself any credit. I've been thinking to myself like, man, I've never won a tournament. I've never won one. What am I going to do? Like, nobody's going to want to watch a YouTuber that never wins his tournament, that gets so close. Look at this. 3-1, 3-1. You know, 2-2 in my earlier days. You know, 3-1, 4-1. Nobody's going to want to watch this, but I technically won a tournament. I won a tournament! I won a tournament and I didn't even know it. Oh man, if only I would have known that I would have won that tournament back in those days, I would have put in the title, I won my local Twilight Mirror Cup, and it just completely slipped by me. Like, man, like I mean, if Hero Vange can classify his tied for first place tournament win as a win, I can classify my Twilight Mirror Cup as a win. So yes, I have won a tournament before, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I just wanted to get that out there, but you know what? One thing I'm not showing you guys in this is my horrible, horrible losses that I took in some of my online Sinister Cups, and man, like the competition that I faced, not only was it tough, but I also did not pick some of the best teams. As you could see, I really could have used some work picking some better teams in this case. Like, I didn't take my online tournaments very seriously at all. And after the beginning of Season 2, I went from an 80% win rate, which is what my local Sinister Cup gave me, all the way down to a 50% win rate. And I ended up dropping like 2,000 ranks because of my online tournaments. So no more ranked tournaments for me. No more online tournaments without some dedication, some practice, and some serious hardcore preparation. I ain't going into any more tournaments, even if it's unranked, without lots and lots of practice. So as you guys know, the Ferocious Cup is coming up, and I haven't been making much for videos on that front, but I'm really planning to have a seriously good run at Ferocious Cup. I'm going to make sure I am adequately prepared this time to take home that gold and do a lot better in the Ferocious Cup than I did in a lot of my Sinister Cups. So, but once again, this video was all about Jojo. It really wasn't supposed to be about me. I just kind of wanted to share my own side of things. So once again, congratulations go to Jojokanojojo for having an absolutely excellent tournament run. And I'll see you in the next one, Jojo. And as far as all of you guys out there in YouTube land, I'll see you guys in my next video. Take care. Love y'all. Peace.